Hello, 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 my friends. Thank you for joining me. I'm Nicholas W. Fuller, and this is Person Behind the Pages, the show where we get to know the creators that make the things we love. Tonight, I'm joined by returning guest Claudia Klein. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Thanks for being here. Thanks for joining me. I was thinking it's been pretty close to right about a year since we talked last, right?
Yeah, it's been right about a year. It's kind of crazy how I had to delay the launch of my next book by that long because it was done. Like it was done, edited, proofread by March this year.
Hmm. But it
So yeah,
just came out, what, like 2 days ago, right?
it just came out 2 days ago. Yep.
Woo woo! Okay. All right. So that much is exciting. That much is pretty cool. Uh, how's the launch going so far? Feel pretty good? Is it like in what way? Let me ask you this way. In what way is the launch exceeding your expectations?
Um, well, I was hoping to get 20 sales
Mhm.
and I'm sitting at 17, so we're almost there.
Nice. You're almost there.
Um, And I was trying to, like, do some paid promotion for this one,
No, interesting.
and, it hasn't gone in yet. So,
Okay,
I have
okay.
one that goes in on, like, Friday, and then I have another one that goes in next week. So we'll see how the month turns out. It's more like I'm since all my promotion goes in after a release day, I'm just looking at it as, like, release month instead of release day. So, yeah, I'm excited.
Nice. Are you doing like book tours or like Amazon ads
Um
or?
So I got my debut. This is not the book that just was just released. This is my debut novel that released in 2019, The Air,
Ooh.
and I got this
Oh,
one on a BookBub featured deal.
nice.
So it's a free one, and I've never done a free BookBub featured deal. I've always done the 99 cents, so I'm a little nervous. But hopefully that trickles. I get trickles of all the backlist,
Right.
including the new
A
book, which
brand
is
new.
so I'm
Yeah. Ooh, love that
this
cover.
awesome
Okay, hang on, hang
cover.
on, hang on. Let's see if I can do this right. No, let's hang on, hang on. And there we go. We're back. We're back. Wanted to give that cover, the time to shine. That's nice.
Yeah, it's
So,
really nice.
and this is a whole new series, right? You've got a complete trilogy out in the world now, and now you're starting a whole new series, right?
Mhm, and, oh, man, it is so much fun to, like, start on a whole new series, like, knowing everything that I know about marketing now and being like, "What else can I do for this one?" Because with my debut, I basically learned how to hit the publish button on KDP, and then I learned everything else
Right, right.
afterwards. So, I'm excited to see how this new series does.
That is, yeah. Sometimes that's the way. You're not the only author that kind of took that approach. I definitely, I know how that goes, but
Yeah.
that's cool. That yeah, and now you. So, what are some of the things that you're planning to do or have already done? I imagine so this new. Well, let me just step back. Sorry, no, no, no. Go ahead. Let's tell me some of the things that you kind of are planning to do or have already done with this already.
Like, on the marketing side?
Yeah, yeah. Things that like lessons learned that you're excited to implement with this trilogy.
So I have a newsletter now, and I did not have one before I
Okay.
before I launched or before I did my debut. I had
Hmm.
no idea that you're supposed to have a newsletter until about 2 years ago.
Yeah, right.
So the exciting thing about that is the newsletter drove so many pre-orders, and
Nice.
it was crazy. It was like every time I sent a newsletter, I got a pre-order. It's like magic. I was like, "Yay! Thank you, my newsletter peeps. You're amazing."
That's
Um,
fun.
um, what else? So I have my newsletter. And then I came out with a prequel novella in August for this new series,
Okay.
and I it is my reader magnet. So like if you sign up for my newsletter by the link in the back of this book, you'll get Court of Shadows and Games for free. But then I also put it up on Amazon. So I ran some preliminary ads to that, and I don't. I'm not that good at ads yet, but I think they did really good. So I have an
Nice.
idea of like once I get more books out in the series, maybe I'll be able to try ads and maybe they'll actually make a profit. Who knows?
Nice.
That's gonna be a couple of years down the road. But I did a lot of social media. Um, well, did I do a lot of social media? I don't know. I'm on a lot of different social media channels, and I have definitely been like the past 2 weeks talking it up on all of them.
Nice, nice.
So yeah,
Very good, very
that's
good.
what I've done so far. I am releasing book 2 in the series in March. So I think in March I might do a price promotion on book 1, but we'll see.
And so that's a little bit of a faster release cadence than you've been able to do in the past too, right?
Yeah, and so I kind of feel like I cheated with this one because I took it from my backlist. Like before I
Mm.
learned how to publish, I was writing in this world, and this was I was writing a trilogy, and what I wrote first was book 3, and then I wrote book 2, and I
Okay.
quit writing it about halfway through, and then I wrote book 1, which is this book, and I quit writing that about halfway through. I was writing this one in 2016, and 2016 was the year that I learned how to self-publish.
Mm.
So instead of finishing this one and like publishing the story of my dreams, I went with the one that I didn't care about as much, where I could like just edit the heck out of it, and that was the air. And yeah, this, and then I got busy finishing that trilogy. So now I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do the story of my dreams. I forget where I was going with that. So
Do with it. No, yeah, that makes sense. That you kind of cheated because they were from your backlog, so you're able to have that faster release cadence because you've essentially already written at least half of these
yeah,
books, right?
because like this one, so this one, okay, I do not know where my camera is. This one, so it was originally a trilogy. I'm stretching it into a 4 to 5 book series,
Okay,
because I wrote book 1 and it was about 140,000 words,
pretty big.
and I decided to split it in 2 books.
Hmm.
Um, Lost my train of thought again. Um, So so what I had out of like the whole story arc of books 1 and book 2, I had like 60,000 words written, which is basically this book. So all I had to
Hmm.
do was do the prepare it for publication, all the editing and revisions and stuff. And
Nice.
then book 2, I just had to finish writing the story arc for the original trilogy's book 1. So yeah,
Okay.
it's a little faster. I need to rewrite book 3 completely, and I'm kind of putting it off until I have time to rewrite it all in one go.
Hmm. How long do you think that's going to take you?
All in one go should take me about 2 months to draft. Well, depending on how long I'm trying to make it. For a 70,000 word novel, it takes about 2 months to draft. And then hopefully that means it'll be a cleaner book since I write it all in one go. So
Yeah.
then the revisions won't take as long. Because I did that, I was able to do that with The Wizard. The Wizard was the book where I had already decided to become a full time author.
Hmm.
And this is the one where I just sat down and I wrote, and then I self-edited, and then I passed off to beta readers and revised, and then passed off to my editor, and then bam, I had a book. It was
Man.
super fast. I think I produced this one in 4 months.
Wow.
So that's why I'm putting off writing book 3, because I think I can produce it in about 4 months.
That's impressive. That's I'm a little bit jelly. That's pretty cool. So, but I guess it's. I mean, you've written a few books. You've learned some things. So, you've refined your process, right?
Yes, definitely.
Nice, nice. Well, I want to. I want to talk a little bit more about that process, but let's kind of talk first about Song of Siege and Shadows. I was reading the description on Amazon, and this sounds pretty awesome. A female blacksmith, a handsome elvish lord, may the two never wed. I don't know if I need to read all of it, but for fans of A Court of Thrones and Roses and Lord of the Rings, which obviously are very small little books out there, right? Like,
Yeah.
niche communities. You'll love this no spice romantic fantasy with elves, evil overlords, forced betrothal, forced proximity, strangers to lovers romance, light magic, and more. I mean, this sounds like a lot of fun. Was it super fun to write?
It was super fun to write. So I wrote it when I'd been married for 2 years, and I
Hmm.
kind of feel like this was me processing my whole relationship, like dating my husband and marrying him and processing all of that. So it definitely was my first book that I wrote as kind of a romance. But then like the feedback on the book is like it's not fantasy romance, it's romantic fantasy.
Okay, okay.
Um, yeah. So I would say like in the beginning of Song and Siege and Shadows, the romance kind of takes precedence, and then it kind of flips switch and switches into an epic fantasy. And
Mm,
I'd say why you can't call it fantasy romance is because the couple doesn't have a happily ever after at the end of this one. It goes on to the next one.
sure,
Um,
sure.
yeah,
It's a 5-book series. Come on, give it some time, right, right.
yeah. It's like Evil Overlord comes and then they're like, well, who cares about us? We got to go fight the Evil Overlord. So yeah.
Sure. As one does, you know. Yeah, yeah, of course. Um, Interesting. So I was curious if like this romantic fantasy or mashup was sort of intentional, like post the success of course a court of thorns and roses, but then also more recently like Fourth Wing and Iron Flame. But given that you wrote this initially way back in 2016, that can't be the case, right?
Yeah, that was not the case. Like I read Lord of the Rings in high school when I was like 16. And then I was like, I gotta write a book like Lord of the Rings. And then I was like, I like the elves the best. I'm gonna write a world of all elves. So it started with like the whole climax of the entire series. That was the first thing that I wrote in the series. And I just wrote in the world and wrote in the world. Um, and so it was heavily inspired by Lord of the Rings. And I took world building elements since I'm from the Midwest originally. You could tell like all it's basically a completely forested land, but then there's also fields. So like you can tell like we're basically like in Middle Earth, except in the Midwest, Middle Earth.
Okay. I like it.
Yeah. So it is kind of interesting how I decided I was writing this one in 2016, and that was before romantasy became popular.
Right.
And I'm kind of sad that I didn't publish it earlier with how popular romantasy is, but I'm really happy that I can publish it now while it's still kind of super hot.
Right, right. I wonder when now I'm curious when exactly ACOTAR was first published. Do you know off the top of your head?
I don't know. I know I read it in 2018. Like I read it, I found it in the library before it was popular on TikTok.
Right, right. Let's see. Can do give me this. All right. Looking. May 5th, 2015. Wow. That's
Mhm.
surprising that it's I mean, because I have pulled up also the New York Times bestseller list right now, and like right now, combined print and ebook fiction, number 7 is A Court of Thorns and Roses. So there's a 9-year-old book and it's still doing that. Like, I mean, romance fantasy is a little bit hot, huh?
Mhm.
Yep, yep. That's amazing. Um, so you wrote this like a while ago. You wanted to do the other trilogy, which I think is a smart move as a new writer. Um, but now it was time to give your baby the time to shine. Like, were there other ideas that were kind of competing at the time, or were you like, no, 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 it's definitely this is going to be the
Um,
one?
yeah, because at the time before I started writing Song of Siege and Shadows, I was writing a completely different novel.
Hmm.
And oh, I was probably writing several different novels as I got bored with one project and I was like, "Oh, I have this idea for another one."
Hmm.
So, I probably have like 2 or 3 other books that I was writing around that time that are all like 20,000 words written in each book.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. Cool. But you decided on this one, obviously. Would you decide on it because it's your baby, or was some of that calculus was like, well, you know what, romance fantasy is a little bit hot right now.
Yeah, I decided on it because it was my baby, and then I was finally like, I think I'm a good enough writer to give this justice now. Because like I go through the first draft of books 2 and 3 of the original trilogy, and like I can't even make myself read it. That's how bad the writing is. But that's not the case anymore. Thank
There you go.
goodness.
Good, good, good. Nice, nice. So let me ask you. I mean, obviously, this is like at least in the beginning, it's romance forward, right? And then later it transitions to more epic fantasy, as you said. Um, my understanding now, I am not a romance writer, but what I have heard from romance writers is that there are very like specific expectations that romance readers have. And if you're not delivering kind of these moments within your romance story, then romance readers will be very turned off. Have you heard that too?
I think I heard that like once or twice,
Okay.
and that's why I'm very afraid to call it a fantasy romance and to kind of pander it more towards the romance readers than towards the fantasy readers,
Okay.
because I was writing this before I read any fantasy romances. And like I still don't quite know what all those beats are that you have to hit.
Right.
And like you can definitely tell when you read my book that I am an epic fantasy writer trying to write a romance. Uh,
Okay. And also, this is specifically a non-spicy romance, right?
yes, and this is no spice.
Is it like so? You do like fade to black when there's like maybe a scene that might suggest something, or like are you just kind of like it's totally sweet romance where like the most action there might be even implied is just like a kiss? Like where are we drawing the line there?
It's totally sweet romance because it's based like it part of it's based off of mine and my husband's dating relationship, which was actually a courtship. Have you ever heard of the Duggars and like the 19 Kids and Counting show and courting?
Uh,
That's what my parents put me and my husband through, and we were not allowed to touch. So in this world, the couples are not allowed to touch at
oh, interesting.
all.
Okay, okay.
So and like I didn't go that much into like super heartthrobby type writing because that's just not the
Hmm.
type of writer that I am
Hmm.
yet.
Hmm.
Maybe it'll become more of that as the series progresses because by now I've read a couple fantasy romances. I kind of know a little bit more how to write that kind of stuff. But it's going to stay completely no spice, sweet romance because I have high moral standards and I just refuse to put out any kind of spice.
Okay, okay. But there's a forced proximity with this pair that cannot touch, huh? You talk about like what
Yes.
that's like. What's the?
So she becomes her father introduces her to her intended, and he is from a different city. They're from the Gwyneth and her father are from the capital city. Her
Mhm,
father is a lord of the council, and Alec is also Lord of the Council. He's the youngest Lord of the Council, so everyone kind of looks down on him because he's young. He's the Lord of Anwythel. And so he traveled in to arrange this whole betrothal. So he's
mhm,
staying with them.
mhm.
And her father is basically like, you are going to spend time with him. So that's how it's forced proximity.
Mhm. Wow, wow. Yeah. You get in there and be with him, but don't touch.
Yeah.
Okay.
And she's also like she had been planning. So in the world, women are typically housewives. So she had been planning the whole time to be she got to be an apprentice blacksmith somehow. So she'd been planning this glorious career as a blacksmith, and she was going to be like the first female blacksmith in thousands of years, and just have this super like manly type job. And there was no room for her husband. And then like her world is just shattered when her father's like, "Here's your intended. Now you have to spend time with him."
Yeah, and probably not at the forge.
Yeah, and not at the forge.
Right, right,
Which is well, anyways, I'm not gonna spoil the whole book, but yeah, I really
right.
like the first scene when they meet.
No, we don't wanna spoil the whole book. No, no, no. Nice. So, but of course, at some point, the epic fantasy elements get there. We meet the evil overlord, and then things are changing too. Are they still in sort of a forced proximity situation as we're getting like later on,
Um, I almost forget what
without spoilers?
happens. I feel like it would be spoilers if I told you what happens as
Okay.
it progresses into the epic fantasy, but basically their city is about to be sieged by the evil overlord and his thousands upon thousands of minions called throws, which are basically like orcs, but I didn't want to write the word orc in my fantasy. um so they just kind of I would say like the romance completely dies away as they're just kind of like forced to join the battle, and she joins the battle without anybody knowing.
Mm,
Um, so yeah, they just kind of have this epic siege battle, and then they I don't know. I'm not gonna spoil the end, I guess.
sure, sure. No, 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 no. That sounds cool that she joins the battle without anyone knowing, though. Uh, Makes me think a little bit of a Eowyn from Lord of the Rings, and like, I love that moment in the end of, or well, near the end of Return of the King, where the Witch King is like, "No man can kill me," and like in the movies, she rips off her helmet and she's like, "I am no man." That was such a glorious
Yeah,
moment. That
I
was
feel
good.
like that moment almost happened in the books too.
Nice, nice. I still need to read the Lord of the Rings books. That's my shame, but one of these days I will actually read the books. But I do love the movies very, very much. But um, cool. All right, so this is book 1, already out. People should go grab it. $4.99 on Kindle, and it's on Kindle Unlimited, right?
Hmm.
And you got a paperback out already too.
Yes.
Nice, nice. Are there solid plans for an audiobook or nothing? Nothing right now.
Nothing right now. Right now,
Fair.
I'm trying to get the book into profit before I think about audiobooks, but I am starting to think about it. It's just one
Very
of those,
reasonable.
right now, I'm still a stay-at-home mom to kids under school age, and I just don't have time to do much besides Kickstarter and selling on Amazon.
I get that one. How old are your kids again? Is it
I'd
like
rather not say, but one is in school by now, and the other
is
one
it
is still under school age.
right. Yeah. My 3.5-year-old definitely is keeping me busy a lot of the time. So I can relate. I can relate. But that makes it even more amazing. But let's talk a little bit about process. You said you're able to like write a book in like 2.5 months when you're able to just write. Like how? How do you possibly do that with the kids too? Like
Um,
are you writing
I
only
write
like late at night or during nap time? I know nap time is a
Okay,
go-to
yeah,
sometimes.
so when I wrote The Wizard, my baby was probably still a baby, and then I had my other kid in preschool. So I was probably writing during those preschool hours. And yeah, I write 2,000 words an hour. So
Whoa, wow, okay.
I was really doing it. I basically had probably like 3 times out of the day when I was kidless. So I was writing during almost all 3 of those times. And I think I averaged about 10 to 14,000 words a week. Because I would some days I would write like 8,000 words, and then I'd be burnt out for like 2 days and wouldn't write anything except for like
Sure.
maybe 300 words. Um, so yeah, did that answer your question?
Yeah, that's 2,000 words an hour. Holy moly, dude! I mean, I could like transcribe that fast. My typing speed is that fast, but like I can't. That's amazing. That I like. So the rest of the day when you're like kind of with the kids, are you just sort of like thinking like how much of it are you kind of sort of writing mentally when you aren't at the keyboard? Does that make sense?
As far as I remember, I don't think about it at all when I'm not at the
No.
keyboard. The
Wow.
keyboard is the only place I think about it. But, like, there are places like, I got stuck in writing The Wizard, so there I did, like, go to my mom group, and, like, all of them are readers, and one of them was another author. So I was like, "What do I do? I'm just stuck," and I've been stuck for, like, a whole day, and they're like, "Just write the ending," and then maybe they'll figure out the middle. I was like, "That is perfect." So I did that, and then I figured out the middle from writing the ending. Yeah, I figured out a way to not get stuck for very long.
Yeah, yeah. I like that. Like sometimes I jump around. I think that can be helpful sometimes. Um, and clearly it worked for you. That's pretty cool. Um, Man, so like when you're are you remind me, I'm sure we talked about this a year ago, but it's like still, are you pantser or plotter or where you kind of fit on the spectrum there,
Um,
you know?
I'm a pantser, but I would almost call myself a planther. Basically, I know when I sit down what the beginning scene should be and what the ending scene should be.
Hmm.
And then as I progress writing the book, I usually write a 1 sentence per chapter outline. And that's as far as I outline. Just so I kind of know, like, I tend to do that when I hit the murky middle, and I'm kind of like, what should happen in the middle to get them to the end? Then I just kind of write about 10 chapters worth of 1 sentences. And that's about as far as I do of planning because I have done, the workbooks that where you're like, write a book in 90 days and you spend like 80 of them outlining the book. And then I was trying to write the book, and I was like, I can't do this. And the book never got written.
Yeah.
Had a lot of outlining, but it never got written. So yeah.
I do feel like it is definitely possible to plan so much that you kind of take the fun out of it, you know?
Mhm.
Because yeah, it's like sometimes the fun is like and is going along and figuring out what's gonna happen, right?
And I almost feel like people who pants can actually write faster than people who plot. I've definitely heard David Gogren say in his newsletter that he usually plots a book, but for this current one he was working on, he was pantsing it and it was coming out a whole lot faster.
I
So I've
could see
definitely heard
that.
people say that.
I could see how that might be true. Although on the other end of the spectrum, like I think Travis Baldree wrote Legends and Lattes in a month, and like he had a plan for it, and he's like, I tried to write 6 books before that, and none of them really kind of panned out because I was just trying to pants them and have like this wonderful epiphany moments where it just felt magical, and it never really worked out. But then when I had a plan, it actually worked out. But I mean, it works different for everyone, right? Like that's the thing about writing that's so hard too, is trying to figure out what works for you, right?
Yeah.
Um, well, cool. I mean, yeah. So the book's been out for a couple days. You got the next one coming out in March. Have you've I mean, I can see that there's already like a few ratings on the new book. Has there been any kind of feedback that's really stood out for you and you've been like, oh, I got that review?
Like good feedback.
If there's negative feedback that stands
There
out, I
was,
mean, we
oh
can roast
man,
them. We
I
can
was
roast
paying
them.
close attention to my ARC team putting in their Goodreads reviews, and like some of it was like really bad feedback. I was like, oh man, I was like crushed. But then I was also like, well, maybe they are right a little bit, but I don't know. Yeah.
I mean, you got some solid. You got a 5-star review, at least one, and like
I
a
do?
4-star rating on Amazon. Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
maybe I have some new ones I haven't looked at. I've
There
only
you
seen
go.
4 stars.
Hey, it says 5-star too. You gotta go check that out.
Oh,
All
okay,
right.
I'm gonna go check it out. That's nice. I feel like the ones who've been giving the 4 stars give super short reviews, and they're basically saying, "I love the book," and they don't say much else. And then the people who are giving the lower stars are like, "I hated the book for all the 10 of these reasons." So then they're much longer, so those stick with you.
Which is super fun, right? I mean, isn't that the best?
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, it's part of the thing, and no story is
Yeah.
gonna be for everyone, and you just at
Yeah.
least go check it out.
The one review I got a little hung up on. Well, I think it's more than one review that said it. Like what I didn't like about ACOTAR. So she's writing about fae, not elves. But I had no idea what fae was when I read ACOTAR. So I was like, she's calling them fairies, but she's writing about elves. They're
Hmm.
elves. Like he's an elf lord. So then it really annoyed me when she started calling them male and female, and it was like, they're just males. There's females, and I was like, you world built all these monsters. Can you just please world build a name other than male fae or female fae? So I did that.
Hmm.
I world built the word for male elf and female elf and child and boy elf and girl elf. Um, and maybe I put in too many references to it. I don't know.
Yeah, so
But
like,
I
and that's some of the negative feedback. Do people feel like that kind of took them out of the story or something?
maybe.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Hmm. I don't feel like that would take me out of the story as long as but it might take me a bit to kind of fully grasp you're talking about.
Yeah.
But
I did put a dictionary in the beginning. So read the dictionary.
come on, folks, just read it. There you go.
But it's got to be way harder because like I invented this type of Elvish, so it's like I'm the native speaker, and it's like everyone else is just like it's like a foreign language. So it's
Sure.
probably is like way more starkly stood out to an actual reader.
Right. Right. So let's talk a little bit about like this romantasy subgenre that is definitely having a moment. I talked about how A Court of Thorns and Roses is number 8. Excuse, I think I said 7 earlier. I guess it's 8. My bad. On the New York Times bestseller list, but still, and that's like a 9-year-old book. And of course, Fourth Wing and Iron Flame are both on the New York Times bestseller list also. And they're not like the only ones that are doing wildly successful. So what is it you think about like kind of this mix of fantasy and romance that's like working for so many people?
I almost feel like it's pulling in the whole romance readers, which is
Hmm.
everyone says romance is the largest genre. The next one is
Hmm.
thrillers. The next one after that is fantasy. Um, So it's pulling in actual romance readers. And I know this is a fact because I have been looking at my followers list on Instagram, and I
Hmm.
have a lot of romance followers on there. And they have like all contemporary romance books. And then they'll have also ACOTAR and Fourth Wing on their profile.
Hmm.
So it's
Hmm.
pulling in those readers who never would have picked up a fantasy book to begin with.
Interesting. Interesting. But like, yeah. I'm wondering like how many of those readers will kind of continue to like other fantasy stories, and I think like we're seeing some of that, right? Well, I mean, clearly they're checking out yours, right?
I hope so.
Yeah. um, that makes sense. Um, so yeah, I mean, I guess we just just need to write more romance, and then we'll get those readers. That's the secret sauce, huh?
Maybe. I am interested to read a romantasy written by a male author one day. I hope that happens. I don't know if that will happen, but I kind of hope it does, just to see how different it's going to be, because men write romance so different than women.
Okay, interesting. Do tell. I haven't really read romance before, but I know that like Nicholas Sparks is quite popular, right?
Yeah, Nicholas Sparks is good. But like I'm kind of laughing like when I read Tolkien's
Oh, sure.
romances, like the one he did with Eowyn and Faramir was
Yeah.
perfect. But then like you read in the appendices the Aragorn and Arwen story, and I read it and I was like, and one of my friends who was a total Tolkien nerd was like, this is like the best romance I've ever read. And then I read it and I was like, this is like the worst romance I've ever read. And I was like laughing my head off and like, please let me forget this story. And then I was reading Wheel of Time
Uh-huh.
and he kind of did the same thing. And I
Hmm.
was like, guys are just terrible at writing real romance.
Okay.
Um,
Fair. Fair.
So, but it's one of those like I feel like they write it how they would like to have the romance, and like females write it how females would like to have the romance. So of course it's gonna be completely different because men and women are so different.
Sure. Sure. That makes sense. Yeah, I wonder about the romantasy from a male's perspective, and like I think like you even if you're like a male author, I feel like you kind of need to have a female. Well, I'm assuming that you have a female protagonist, but you also have like the handsome elvish lord, right? But the
Mhm.
female is the main POV character in your story.
So I decided to do dual POV.
Uh huh.
And that was the feedback from my beta readers. They were like, I don't really like Alec that much. I almost think he's a bad guy. And I was like, he's supposed to be the hero. So I added an Alex POV to hopefully reassure the reader that he is the hero. Um,
And then you can kind of get into his head and show some of
yeah,
his motives, and then you understand why he's doing some of the things that he's doing.
yeah. But as I write more in his POV, I find out that there's a whole lot more to his story. Um, than I even know right now, and I'm really interested how book 3 is gonna go.
Ooh, interesting. Okay, okay. That's pretty fun. But I do feel like in general, like I feel like most of the because to me, like it seems like the appeal of romantasy is that it is like it's sort of like the fantasy, but more written like with a female forward, right? And a female main character and like a strong female main character, and they're not kind of the like the Eowyn like side character that's sort of just again, at least in the movies, she's like her job is to kind of fawn over Aragorn during the movies, and like that's what she's there for a little bit. But like, well, until she becomes a total badass and then goes and kills the Lich King. But like, but up until that moment, like she's kind of she doesn't have a whole lot of agency where she's like just helping the king. But I would think in like the like story like Fourth Wing, I mean, the female's the main character, and it's like you're focused on her story, not just focused on like how she's kind of doing things around these other male characters. Would you think that's kind of a part of the appeal as well, or am I off the mark? What do you think?
Um, maybe. Um, I'm not sure why the authors are choosing the female POV, but I'm guessing that's because maybe a lot of other romances choose the female POV
Right,
over having a male POV at all.
right.
Um, so yeah, I mean, and like the whole like writing the strong female who's just like equal or above a male is really popular in all content nowadays.
Mm,
Um, so I feel
that's
like
fair.
I feel like if you want your book to be popular, you have to write that into the book.
I've definitely seen a fair bit of like media analysis where they're talking about like the strong female character, but then some of them are talking about how like Captain Marvel, they felt missed the mark, you know, in terms of like making an interesting, strong female character.
I have so much to say about Star Wars and Marvel trying to go with the trope, because it's
Go.
all hatred.
Yeah.
Basically, Star Wars and Marvel were built, like, for guys, I
Mm,
feel like. There are a lot
fair.
of girls who love it, but I mean, their main market was guys, and it's like when you switch to having the female characters, like, you're gonna lose the interest of your main market.
Mm, okay. Well, fair, I guess. Um, hmm. Okay. There's definitely like, I mean, there's a lot of hate from the like main market for uh some of the female characters, right? Um, so I think I definitely at
Yeah.
least like see where you're coming from. Yeah.
I
It's
definitely my opinion was somewhat well, it's not all based off of another person I heard, but Brian Cohen was talking about it like a year ago when Miss Marvel came out, and that was also his opinion. So I'm
Mhm,
like,
mhm.
yes, that's definitely what's going on.
Right. Yeah, and there was, I mean, and even with like Ray in the Star Wars, there was like a lot of pushback. Um, I'm trying to think of like anyone, yeah, that there hasn't been like a ton of pushback on, but that's a fair point. That's kind of interesting and sad, you know?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
um, well, yeah, I mean, hopefully, like, you know, I guess the good thing about some of these romantasy stories are like they're starting from a position of like having these strong female characters and catering to the female audience, so they can hopefully only grow to become more and more appealing to a broader audience than the. Um, cool, cool. So, if anyone's thinking about Song of Siege and Shadows, like, what's your pitch right now? What's your favorite way to pitch the book?
My favorite way to pitch the book is, let's see if I can remember it. A female blacksmith. I'm not able to remember it.
No worries.
um. Anyways,
Yeah, well, I mean, you got the female blacksmith. I mean, you've got the betrothal and the forced proximity. So there's definitely a lot of like romance elements. Like, would you say that like the people that are enjoying the story and giving it the good reviews, are they like primarily? I suppose that they are kind of primarily fantasy readers, but they're interested in more romance.
hold on. I want to read you
There we go. Sure.
my main pitch. Because it's so well written. Okay, so here it is. A blacksmith wants to forge her own path, but rising evil and a surprise betrothal foil her plans.
Nice, nice, nice. Got the yeah, Rising Evil and Forest Betrothal. So, like, at what point do you kind of like introduce the evil overlord? Are we getting hints of it early on, or is it like more like this just sort of comes out of left field, and you're like, oh my god, left reeling, you know?
We are getting hints of it from the prequel novella.
Okay,
Basically, there's like whisperings of a shadow who's going to come. And then like the very first scene in I would say chapter 1 of Song of the Siege and Shadows is addressing like, oh, he's like almost here. And like we're gonna be sieged really soon. And then it kind of switches to the romance. And we have the
nice.
lovely romance. And then it switches back to, oh, here's a siege and we have to fight now.
So, are we getting to see the main characters in the prequel novella, or are
Um,
they
the prequel novella follows a character that you will see in, I should probably make it book 3. Um, so it
okay?
follows basically what has happened with the magic in this world is the elves used to know the ancient fighting magic, but it has been lost over time.
Hmm,
So all the magic that they know right now is the magic of creation. So basically, Gwyneth, like, she creates stuff as a blacksmith. So she uses magic to help her create things um, that a blacksmith would create, like swords and weapons and
sure,
other things. So what they do is um, they send the Princess Selena. They send her to another world to learn the ancient fighting magic. And she is supposed to return, but the evil overlord comes first.
Nice. Well, that's interesting. I'm
Yep.
interested too. Like, yeah, you mentioned that there's light magic, that's in the Amazon description. So, how does that like, how do you define light magic in this story?
And I find that magic is like she is basically just using magic to like make the fire hotter for her forge. So then she's not constantly going at the bellows. And then like she uses it to help her engrave different things onto the weapons that she's making and make it absolutely beautiful. But then like they have lost ancient fighting magic. And basically what I did to make it super easy for myself, so I ended up in the wizard. I
Ta-da.
created my magic system, which is kind of a mashup between Harry Potter and Star Wars magic. And it's going to be the same type of magic. But they don't know it. So Selena, when she comes back, is going to know it. So
Nice.
it'll be like more and more magic, I think, as the series progresses.
I love that. I thought like actually Game of Thrones did that so cool. I remember like in the beginning of Game of Thrones, I was like, okay, cool. We got this like medieval fantasy story. Like I like the vibe that's going on here. But then like eventually you see Daenerys with the dragons, and you're like, there are dragons in this. This is awesome. I loved it. Yeah, I like that. That sounds really cool. I like that approach. That's fun. Sounds like a fun read. And then the preview novella is free. Where can people go get that?
So if you get this book and then you follow the link in the back of the book, I honestly don't remember if I put the link in the front of the ebook so that you could just like look inside on Amazon. I don't know if I have it there, but I have it in the back. So if you get this book, then you can get Court of Shadows and Games, the prequel, for free by joining my newsletter.
Nice.
Otherwise, you can grab it off Amazon for 99 cents.
99 cents, great deal. I like there's a reviewer I know that talks about the dollar to delight ratio of how great the dollar to delight ratio is for books, and it's absolutely true. Especially
Mhm.
ebooks, lots of enjoyable time spent for just 99 cents, Love it. Let me give you a little bit of a shift as I kind of wrap up a little bit. I want to ask you, what is your favorite piece of writing advice you've ever heard?
Ooh.
I know.
To think because it's been years since I've read craft books. I read the craft books until I was like, I could write a craft book. And then I quit reading the craft books. Goodness. And a lot of those, and I don't know, a lot of those craft books were also like outline, outline, outline. And I don't do that. Best piece of writing advice for anybody who's trying to write is just finish the book. There are so many people who start books and they just can't finish them. I have 5 siblings and all of us started stories growing up.
Wow.
And I want to say me and only one other sibling were the ones who could finish the stories. Yeah. So just finish the story, even if you
Just
have to
finish
write the ending first.
write the ending, write the yeah. If you have to write little one sentence outlines for the muddy middle, whatever you got to do, like get yourself over that finish line. I think that's really good advice. And like, yeah, and Brandon Sanderson's writing lectures that are on YouTube, he's talked about before, like the biggest divide between someone that wants to write a book and wildly successful author like him. The biggest drop off is actually, it's not getting an agent or getting a publishing deal or whatever, it's finishing the book. There are so many people that want to write a book, and like only a handful of them actually go and complete. So if you can
Yeah.
get that done, you're already way ahead of the game. So I love that. um all right. Any, I guess it's been a bit, but any particular craft book that was more enjoyable than others that you can think of? Or
The one that I liked the best was the one I read in high school. It's called Writing Magic by
Mhm.
the girl who what's her name? Gail Carson Levine. She wrote a book for I'd say it's for tweens, like middle grade people. It's called Writing Magic. And it
Nice.
is amazing. It has so much good writing advice in it. And then it's also like has a lot of story prompts in it. So like if you have trouble, like, what do I write about? Well, just follow the prompt and write a story.
That's pretty cool. I'm gonna have to check that one out. And it's actually only 90. I had a friend recommend writing a craft book. I think even the like Kindle book was like $25. I was like, what does this? What? Oh my gosh! But yeah, this is a reasonable price craft book. Well, Claudia, this has been lovely. Where can people find and follow you online?
I am on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and TikTok, all at the same handle, which is at Claudia Klein Author.
Well done, getting the same handle on all of those. Good job.
Yep. And then I have a website now too. I didn't have one last year. It's claudiakleinauthor.com.
Nice. And that's where people can sign up with the newsletter, I imagine. There's a link to the
Yes.
newsletter from there.
Yes, I'm not sure how the welcome sequence works with that. So if you join my newsletter through that, please reply to an email and let me know if you got any kind of a welcome sequence.
Tell us if it all works.
Yeah.
This is exciting part about indie writing, right? We get to wear all the hats, and sometimes it works out great, and sometimes it's like, ooh. Well, that's good. That's good. Why do you have a website? Wow. And of course, congratulations too on your recent release of Song of Siege and Shadows. Well done.
One more time.
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty
Oh,
exciting. Yeah.
and I should tell you guys, the Air
Mhm.
ebook right now is free.
Ah,
So go pick it up. Go pick it up. Go pick it up. It's free.
go get the air. Nice, nice, nice. What's we talked a little bit about the pitch for Song of Siege and Shadows. What's like a pitch for the air?
The Air is the story of Princess Cat, who her country is about to be overtaken by marauders, and her father says, "Flee the country with your little sister, so that the royal line will not die out, because me and your brother are most likely to die." And she says, "Screw that! I want to fight in the battle too, because I'm a trained archer." So she cuts off her hair and she joins Archer as a boy, and yeah, things go south, and there's a lovely enemies to lovers romance in there, and it's great.
Man, okay. That sounds that little bit of Mulan vibes there, you know?
Better Milan vibes.
I like it. That sounds exciting. Cool. And hey, free book, dollar to the light, you know, like come on, can't beat that. All right. Well, thank you again for joining me, Claudia. I really appreciate it. Had a good time talking with you tonight.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
My pleasure. And everyone watching, thank you for joining us as well. Hope you go check out some books. Great prices here. And for everyone, for Claudia, for anyone watching, if no one's told you today, you're an absolute legend. Yep, still a legend.